Alright, Psychonaut Visions with the man here, Northwood Shaman. That's what we like to call him, Shortwood, because it's the opposite of his name. And today we're going to talk about something that might be a little touchy to some people. We're going to philosophize about religion. And what is your question today that we're going to talk about?
My question is religion an innate part of existence itself?
So we're going to touch...
Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to touch upon this topic, just a forewarning. We're not trying to offend anybody at all. We're just going to recount our personal observations and also philosophize regarding those personal observations and kind of just talk about religion a bit. None of us are really religious at all, so we may all just be wrong about everything we're talking about. But
we don't know the truth either. Like, we're just giving our perspective basically, and hopefully opening up new people to new ideas, essentially.
Yeah, so that's the whole point basically, is to kind of just talk about things, see where it leads us. And I wanted to start off a little bit that I'm not going to directly answer the question. I'm going to see what our discussion leads us to
right.
Maybe come to a conclusion.
What that question evokes in you is what you should say, you know what I mean? When I say that question, is religion an innate part of existence itself? Tell me what that makes you think.
So, I've been reading a book. For anybody that is actually watching this collab, maybe like the 15 people that watch this entire thing, I've been reading a book this last week called Bringers of the Dawn, and it's very esoteric and it's very spiritual, and it's really hard to explain the main idea of it. I mean, basically, to sum it up, it's hard. It'll take me a couple minutes to explain it, but...
Wait, what did you say it was called again?
Bringers of the Dawn.
Breeders of the Dawn?
Bringers, like...
Bringers. Oh, bringers. Yeah. Okay.
So, basically, the key idea is that people like you, me, Will, we're light workers. And we're not natively human. We're not actually human. We are in a disguised form. We are disguised as humans. And we're here on this earth with a purpose, with all our three separate different purposes. We're old souls that have been in this universe for a very long time, and we know how everything works, but we forget everything when we come down to this earth in these bodies. We willingly come to these bodies, and most of the time, people like us, light workers, we come to the United States because it's the easiest political system to actually do the most light work, because we're not held back by too many limitations. And throughout the book, I'm not done with the entire thing yet. I still have about 100 pages left to go, but it is very profound, and it's really resonated with me that I might be the light worker. I'm here to spread information. That's what light means, to spread information. That's the vibrational frequency of light. And she talks about the darkness and how darkness doesn't necessarily mean evil. It means ignorance, which is a core principle of Buddhism, of course. I talked about this in a video that I just made today, or maybe the day before, that, the root cause of suffering in Buddhism is ignorance. And
and I just recently said this to somebody the other day. Ignorance doesn't mean you're stupid. Ignorance, it should be pronounced ignorance. Because it means you ignore a lot of the factors that are at play within certain situations, you know what I mean? You're not grasping the whole picture that's available,
But go ahead. It might not be just... I think what I'm taking from this book is that it's not necessarily that you're ignoring it. It's like you just don't know better, and you don't know the answers, and you're just in the dark and everything. And the point of her bringing up the darkness is that there's these multi-dimensional aliens, that have been in control of this earth and this dimension for hundreds of thousands of years, over a cosmic war where they won this territory, and they have used darkness, and it's not because they're evil, it's because they literally just don't know better. They use darkness to feed off negative energy that's created by us. They create this technology or these marketing campaigns or marketing schemes to get people hooked on things, to get people to be sad. That's why all these people are corporatists. They love the corporate world, where they're just trying to go, what do you call it, when like a politician, I can't think of the word, but you know, politicians, they get paid lots of money by corporate companies to basically have them be ignored by what they're doing, by what the politician, how do I explain it, bro? Like, politicians ignore like the bad things that these corporate companies are doing because they're paid off, basically. I can't remember what it's called lobbying. That's what it's called. I don't want to get too I'm not going to get too political with that, but it's called lobbying. That these big corporate companies, they lobby these politicians to change laws in order to aid these corporations, and in turn it creates like a negative vibrational frequency from where we're living. And the whole point of why I'm saying this is that these people, whoever you want to call them, these negative energy sorcerers, they're here to spread that negative energy, and they created religion in a way to create fear, to try to fearmonger people into doing things. And not all religion isn't inherently bad or inherently dark. It's just that some of these people are at these places to promote fear, to promote ignorance, to where people are worshiping these gods that aren't really gods. They're just people that have more abilities than we are. Are people that have more abilities than we have, or at least that we think we have, because we originally came here and we originally had a DNA of 12 helixes instead of 2. It just got manipulated to a way where we're easier to control. That's the whole point of this frequency control, that we're down here and we're being controlled through this negative frequency, which is their energy. That's what they feed off of. Does that make sense? I know, like, so there's a few times...
What you're telling me right now, this whole story that you just told me, sounds to me like a religion. You know?
What do you mean?
Everything you just said is, in its own way, a religion to believe
in. I mean, it doesn't... Not a religion by the traditional sense.
It's perfectly complete. It makes complete sense, you know?
I mean...
That we're light workers and that there are these spiritual people, and the ones who are, you know, inherently doing wrong in this world are, of course, the negative energies that are at play against us light workers. And it's a complete story, you know? And what I define a religion as is a complete story, a wholesome story that puts things through in an entire way, in a complete way, you know? If you can fully describe what's going on in different scenarios, in a sense you have a religious belief, I think.
And just talk a little bit about the human ignorance a little bit. You know, I think science is something that is very informative, and it's definitely useful, don't get me wrong, but I think what science basically insinuates is that, for many people at least who think science is it, and like this is just a coincidence, this is how everything works, people look at it in the sense that anything that hasn't been scientifically proven simply just doesn't exist. And I think that sort of contradicts itself when people say, oh, well, I believe in this God, but I don't believe in spirits, I don't believe in this, I believe in coincidence. It's like, well, okay, then why do you even believe in God in the first place? And I think there's a lot of stuff that we just simply cannot perceive. Like, I believe in God, I believe in a higher power, I pray every day, but I don't know what I'm praying to or who I'm praying to.
That's a good way to put it, man.
And like, I think that the thing that is ignorant about humans is that we often have this connotation for God as superhuman, like he's a he or the man above. And I don't really see that as realistic, which is why I think a lot of atheists, for example, I can see where they're coming from, because a lot of human representations of God are very naive. Like we think that he's this human, this superhuman, and it's like we don't have any clue in all reality what God could be. Like we just don't know. and
where atheism trips up is,
well, I'm not, I don't believe in atheism. But I'm not gonna follow that. But
you know what came to my mind about atheism, I understand what they're saying too,
You're
because
right,
it's a nice, complete, wholesome story.
Mm-hmm.
But they think they're right generally.
Yeah.
They, quote, "No, there's no God." There's
Mm-hmm.
no God. Obviously, it's just this material world. And also, what I wanted to say is, you said how religions will make out the God to be this sort of superhuman.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Most religions have a sort of higher power in them. And you were talking about science and how people think that's, the hardest thing there is. That's the raw reality.
Yeah.
But science is the religion of matter, in which matter is God. Matter is God, and matter is the higher power. You know how we talk about how little and minuscule we are compared to the big material universe? Scientists see this material universe as the quote-unquote higher power, and it's just another story or religion or whatever spin you want to put on it.
So I have a few things to say now. One is related to scientists, of course, and another is related to the book. So the other day, we smoked and we were just chilling in the car, and I felt like listening to Terrence McKenna podcast, and there's this one that we came by where he talked about how scientists, they're an integral part of spirituality. But the thing that science comes short at is the fact that what he says is that there are mathematical systems where you can attain an answer, but you don't know where the answer came from, and no other mathematical system can explain it.
Like the answer they give us is basically based off of only what we can perceive.
Yeah.
The universe itself is a rhythm, and we are able to detect this rhythm in different speeds, in different spaces, at different times. And what mathematics is a organization of that rhythm, and obviously when you apply the correct mathematics to the rhythm of the universe, it will always follow suit. You know what I mean? It'll always add up. Math never fails. It's because the universe never fails. The universe is in a perfect rhythm that we humans are able to conceptually imagine and apply onto this thing that we entirely fabricated, that a lot of us believe is actually a part of the universe, but it's all just and you can think of what I'm about to say as a religious belief, but it's all just a vibrating energy. Scientists and physicists will say it themselves, that everything is vibrating. Your whole body is vibrating atoms, and photons, light. Everything matter is vibrating, Nothing's actually solid. In the same way a fan going really fast, you can't put your hand through it, is why you can't put your hand through a rock. In theory, is what they say,
But there's also, what was I gonna say? Damn it, I kind of forgot. But I did want to mention something earlier to kind of change the topic about how the book. Oh, okay, that's right. The book mentions how there's a prime creator, which is what you want to think of as God, what people think of as God. But the thing is, people who are in these different religions, such as Christianity or maybe Islam or something, where they believe in God or Allah or whatnot, maybe they are experiencing God, a portion of God, but it's not in the way that they may think of it, or the way that they may think it is. Like, they think of God as like this person, this singular thing. Like, God is throughout everything, like you said, it's throughout everything material.
And that's why people are able to see God in so many different things, be it a figure that they imagined or a little lingam, what they call it in Hinduism, a little friggin' metal thing that they worship. You know what I mean? It's God. And that shows you that God is coming through everything, and it's a matter of what you portray, what you see as God, you know?
But you also can't truly be in complete harmony with God, because God is the prime creator of everything. And not even, from what this book says anyways, not even like the most powerful interdimensional extraterrestrials or beings have even come close to experiencing that vibrational frequency that God is at, because they're so powerful, they're so extremely powerful that it would completely destroy us to come into contact with God. Like, we're only coming in contact with certain portions of God, if that makes sense. At least that's what I think.
I can understand that in a level of psychological intensity. What you mean when you say it would destroy us to come in full contact with God, I understand that through a psychological intensity that we interpret through it. You know, it shatters the psychological mind, you know, to come, because I understand the awe in coming into even a little contact with what you'd call a higher power. And I've heard quotes from saints themselves that say things like, you know, the average mind coming in contact with God would be completely shattered, just like you said. And I think it's not that we can't bear it. I think it's more so that who we make ourselves out to be can't imagine such a thing.
It would be extremely humbling for us.
Beyond humbling.
Yeah.
I mean, who is this prime creator you speak of? You know what I mean? And am I not him? Are you guys not him as well?
We do create reality.
My phone not the prime creator of reality?
We are, the prime creator is throughout all of us, but from what I've been reading is that we create our own reality through our thoughts and our feelings and through this vibrational frequency of love, because we can't spread light without first feeling love, because light isn't a feeling. It's just a vibrational frequency. So we have to feel something, because that's one of our biggest strong suits is emotions. And we have to feel this.
When you say light, do you mean like light, or do you
No.
mean like inner knowing?
Positivity.
I said earlier it was information, like inner knowing, remembering who you are, why you're down here, and what you're meant to do in this dimension.
And you've said
See,
you feel
what ticks me about that is I feel like anybody could essentially remember who they are, you know, if that's what we're talking about. And, you know, I'm more so based in Buddhist and Hindu belief systems that it's more so a matter of if that person's ready to or not, if that person's in a place where they're considering it or looking for it, which you would call karma, and where they are in terms of their cycle through samsara and being awakened out of it, you know. And I can tie what you're telling me, Alex, about this book you're reading right into Buddhism. That what that author calls the light workers is people who are at a karmic moment of awakening. It's just simply people that awakening is happening to, you know what I mean?
Look,
There's gonna be some in all places at all times.
that's exactly what the book says. It doesn't reference Buddhism
What
at
are
all.
superpowers?
But it doesn't reference Buddhism at all, but from what you're saying and from what I remember from Buddhism, yes, the book says exactly that there are some people that come down during certain times just to witness things that they may not even be ready to come, shatter the original frequency that was here in place. They're just coming to observe, and they may not even know it. They may not even ever find themselves in this lifetime. That it's not until another lifetime that they're ready to blossom.
And you were talking about something in one of your recent videos too about, didn't you say you've been like finding yourself more and like finding what your purpose is essentially?
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to like state my 100% true purpose right now, but from what I have been realizing the last couple of weeks, I feel like I'm an old soul, and this is a video I just made and I'm going to be uploading probably tomorrow. I feel like I'm an old soul. The reason why I'm connected to nature so profoundly, I'm connected to psychedelics, I like being introspective and alone and in my thoughts, is because I'm an old soul. But it took me a little while. I mean, if anything, it's early, honestly. It's early on in my life that I started becoming spiritual, but it still took me until I was 20 years old to have this spiritual awakening and then to grow with it, that I had to suffer as a consequence of a spiritual awakening, because that's usually what happens, because you're not sure what's going on. You're in the dark. You don't know what's going on. You have so many questions, and eventually you're going to suffer because you're in darkness. And even though you may know at the core that you're here to do something, you're still in this darkness, which may bring you into a depression. And you're just like, fuck, like I don't know anything, dude. Like what the fuck is going on?
That's kind of how I felt too for a while after I had my spiritual awakening, which I had mine a little before Alex had his. I had mine in August of 2019, and I felt essentially like invincible for a month or two. I had a friend that passed actually around that time, but I was able to get over it, and I just felt like this isn't going to stop me. Like I'm fine. But then eventually I was like brought down back to reality, and I had anxiety every day, depression. I was like, what's going on? Like, what happened? What was that? I was still trying to like comprehend what I went through. And after a while, like from a lot of 2020, I would say I felt lost. And not to get too far off topic, but eventually when I started writing, I've actually been writing this book, and I feel so much more passionate about life just in general, and like getting up and like wanting to actually serve a purpose essentially and be somebody. And that has helped me a lot to get out of that depressive state of mind.
Because you're in a flow state, that's why. Because you found exactly what you're meant to do.
I mean, I hope it's exactly what, at least it's just something that keeps me going, basically, right? Like I don't know, nothing's guaranteed, so.
I've wanted to ask this to you guys before, and I've never really knew how to word it, but you talk about this spiritual awakening that happened at a given time in your lives.
Right.
It makes me want to ask, what is a spiritual awakening? And is it something you can pinpoint in time? And what happens? What is it that happens when a spiritual awakening happens?
See,
is it a thing that happens?
It's different for everybody, I think.
It is different for everything, but it's not this one day all of a sudden you're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go outside and go do some mushrooms and start meditating all morning under the sun. Like, it's not how it works. What I think of it as, like, jumping through a portal that you don't even know you're jumping through. You're just walking along one day,
ride,
and it doesn't hit you at that moment, but it's like you're going through this door to
all of a sudden everything's different, but you haven't realized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the next day you wake up, you might feel a little bit different, and then the next day it's different and even more different, and then the next day you wake up and you're like, you know what? Maybe I should meditate. Maybe I should start eating a little bit better.
Or try new things.
And then the next day you're just like, oh, let's go on a hike. And then the next day you just try to find something else to do better. And for me, it was like, I don't know what it was. It's the same thing. It's the same feeling I have now. The reason why I want to trip on psychedelic or trip on shrooms on Sunday is because I just have this intuition that that's the day. It's the perfect day. because I have this time off now, and I'm in this little mini hiatus of school where I don't have anything to stress out about. And I was able to switch shifts with somebody to where I would get Monday off so I could have the day off after to kind of just relax. And I was thinking, like, when I had my solo trip, which I truly feel like initiated my spiritual awakening, I don't think it was the sole cause of my spiritual awakening, but I think it definitely, like, initiated it. And what happened with me was
you were meant to trip, so it made you think it had made you have a spiritual awakening, you know?
Okay, so here's the thing. It wasn't until a couple of days before I tripped where I just was just like, you know what? Maybe I should just go buy some shrooms. I didn't tell anybody except my girlfriend. That was it. I didn't tell anybody. I ended up writing a letter for my dad to have him read, you know, just spilling out everything I've felt like my entire life throughout my childhood about my dad, because my relationship with him is estranged, basically. Like, we just don't have a great relationship, and it still isn't great. But I was able to get everything out on paper. I gave it to my mom to hand to him while I was free consciously. I was free, and it was during this time.
Wait, were you tripping? Oh, it was during your spiritual awakening.
No, I'm talking about, like, the day that I went to go trip on shrooms. I handed my mom a letter.
This was all that day?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I handed my mom a letter that I wrote my dad, and she gave it to him that day. So I went into the trip with a peace of mind that I got everything out, that I didn't have anything that I was holding within. And,
right, that's cool.
And, you know, it's funny because I talked about being spiritual and stuff because of psychedelics before then, but it wasn't until a couple days before I did my solo trip that I actually started meditating for real. And I started stretching more, and I started caring more about self-care and, you know, all of these things. And I don't know, you know, there's a point where I was kind of, like, anxious after my trip because of everything going on with COVID, but somehow I settled in along the way. And then it was starting, like, when I was starting to work on YouTube a lot more, and I was getting up every day with the sun, because the days were getting longer, and it was springtime, and I can feel the days getting warmer. I'm like, oh, like, I have so much energy. And I was just thinking, like, dude, I have never felt this great in my life. I don't know what this is. Yeah. I'm just, like, constantly talking about it. I'm, like, so rejuvenated and passionate. And you know, to bring this back to religion, actually, because we kind of, like, got really far off
topic, yeah.
But I have a great observation of how this ties in religion.
So
I was gonna say
tie in religion is that we as humans, or if we are truly light workers, if this is what the book is trying to say, that we are.
You believe in that religion now, don't you?
Well, I'm just saying, like, if we are light workers, we wouldn't technically be human. But let's say we are human. You know, we are living a human experience, so we're still humbled by the fact that we're still living a human experience just like everybody else is. And humans innately are spiritual because they're
sorry about that, man.
Humans are innately spiritual because they want to find out more about what's going on. They don't know what's going on, and they feel this connection. And it was a lot easier back then. You know, it was a lot easier, you know, 100,000, I mean, even like 20,000 years ago, or like
Do you think it was easier back then?
I don't know.
I think it might have been, because I feel like the more we advance into this own reality, like this technology and the digital era and being distracted, and I don't want to say everything is a distraction, I don't want to be that guy, but, like, being distracted by things such as sports or politics and video games.
They're the ones who got us here.
Huh?
Those people 20,000 years are the ones who got us to the point we're at now. You can't blame it on the scientists that have jobs right now, or anybody that, you know, is alive right now, because they're not the ones who created how we are right now. That is something that evolved in humans. And, you know, I think the mind of an ancient human being was racing, man. You know, kind of like how it still is now. We're still trying to create all these, what we call realities, you know, what we think is truth and real. And that's what makes me ask that question, is religion an innate part of existence itself? Because humans, us right now, are a part of existence. In everything we've all talked about this whole time is religious belief, you know, is religious imagination. Because you're right, we don't know what this is. Even being a human is an idea, you know, to me, that there isn't such thing as being human in a world. Is the human mind trying to figure it all out? And that itself has been there through and through. And that human mind that's trying to figure everything out is what has made up all these religions, you know? And I guess my definition of a religion is more broad than other people's, you know, because a religion doesn't just have to be a group of people that believe in a god. A religion can also be a group of people that refuse to believe in something else. Right. That's a religion to me, you know. And when you formulated this story and put it in, that's how things are. I think you're tying yourself into a religion.
In what? Like me going through a spiritual awakening?
You going through a spiritual awakening made you become religious. Yes.
My experience with a spiritual awakening is a little bit, it's similar in its own ways, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about religion especially, is that, did you guys go to church, by the way, when you were young, like when you were kids?
No.
Not really.
I didn't really that much either. I did from the time I was about 5 to like 8 years old, and obviously I was too young to like really process any information. But I mean, when you keep going to church when you get older, because I had a few friends that did, and they weren't too religious, but some parents like really enforce that upon their kids, and that's like how they can really, you know, it's hard for a kid when they go through that to sort of develop their own belief system and want to be their own person. And I'm just fortunate that I didn't keep going to church, but I was Catholic, by the way. But and just for spiritual awakening, for that sense, I had mine that was basically sort of like a psychedelic trip in a way, because I had my highest dose, my heroic dose in June of the year, and I had my spiritual awakening in August, and a lot of those images and insights that I was gaining from that June experience were almost like coming back to me in a way. And I was getting like, I was literally going outside at night and just, I was so amazed and taken back by all the plant life and all the nature around me. And I was just, like I said, fearless. And that's kind of how I went through. So it was a little bit different than Alex, because I didn't really find exactly what I wanted to do. It took me a lot of time to integrate that from my psychedelic experience as well as my spiritual awakening into my life. But I mean, there were times where I was questioning as well, like, is this really, or like, did I really go through a spiritual awakening? Or like, what is a spiritual awakening? Is it different for everybody? But yeah.
Those questions are leading you to your next religious or spiritual notions. And, you know, and to clear up more what I was saying to you, Alex, as well, is the way your life carries out naturally. Look back on the last week. It doesn't seem significant, but as time goes on, you begin to see how what you were going through in each and every moment was what brought you to this moment right here, right now. And the reason everything is available to you right now in the way it is because of what happened a week ago, a year ago, a day ago, a month ago, 3 seconds ago. And everything is like this unraveling carpet. And when you go through something, you know, what the human mind would define as a spiritual awakening, it was that your life itself, the way your life was unraveling, played out in a way that you perceived to to be spiritual. And this doesn't mean spirituality isn't real, because spirituality, to me, is that very realization.
So,
that's roughly what I had to say. It's more so that your mind is seeing that. Oh, I'm losing my train of thought. Hold on, give me a second here. When your life plays out in a seemingly unrecognizable way, you may define it as a spiritual experience. And I'm going through this spiritual awakening. I'm awakening, But that in itself is just the unraveling of your life, Now you're somebody that thinks they had a spiritual awakening. Now you're somebody that thinks they're spiritually awake. Now you're somebody that's in a lull because they're not spiritually awakened anymore, and you associate yourself with this unraveling lifestyle. But being able to see that you are tying your mind into this story is what I define as spirituality, and being able to see that you don't know, and that's why you're looking for all these answers. That's why you're looking for all these truths, and we're light workers. That's why we are the way we are. We're light workers. We need to help people. That's an awesome story. Yes, we need to help people. But it's a story. It's a version of the experience that we're experiencing, and it's a moralistically good story. But everything you hear is a story filtered through the conceptual mind. Everything, and I'd go out on a limb here and say that anything you believe in with a sort of faith, you could call a religion, like you're religious towards your everyday life, the way Alan Watts puts it. You have faith that the ground isn't going to fall out from under you the next step you take. But how do you know it's not going to?
Wait a second. So,
right? It seems silly.
Hold on.
But it's how reality is.
Before you keep going further and further into that rabbit hole, I wanted to kind of expand on what you're saying a little bit and try to interpret it also in a way that, for me, I feel like for what we think is spirituality is us just discovering who we are.
Wait, say that one more time.
I said what we think is spirituality is just us discovering who we are through life experience. As you said, it's just our life unraveling to a point to where we discover something and we label it as spiritual.
Yes, and that implies that a spiritual awakening isn't one thing, It's all these different stories that got people to that point. If a spiritual awakening is realizing who we are is thousands of different interpretations, and it gets a little confusing.
Yes.
Who really are we? Are we light workers? Are we God's children? Are we just bacteria on a rock in space? What is reality? What actually are we? What is our purpose? We don't know. And that's why we are religious, because we don't know. And that's what drives me in believing that religion is built into, it's like the way life is, the way reality itself is like a starter pack. And it comes with materials, it comes with chemistry, it comes with life, it comes with consciousness, and it comes with religion. It comes with a conceptual mind that doesn't know shit and is trying to make sense of everything. And whether it thinks things are raw reality, there's nothing special around, that's a religion. That's a religion, as dry and hardcore as it seems, and not spiritual. That is that person's religious or spiritual belief. That's really all I gotta say on that part right there.
We have, okay, here's the thing. I know for a fact, like, we have, how do I say it? We have psychic abilities. And
You mean like us as
no
light
doubt.
workers?
and we,
Or just in general?
just in general, we have psychic abilities, and it's because we're far more powerful and advanced than we really think we are. We're able to create our own reality and manifest everything, because what we see is just a holographic image. You know, obviously we don't understand the true extent of reality, and nobody does. Even if you're a light worker who remembers everything, you're not able to, you know, go into reality and just willingly jump throughout space and time and just bend everything and just make it like all come together, you know.
Notice how the people who are enlightened don't do stuff like that?
Yeah.
But I think what I'm trying to say is something that I kind of already forgot. It's
Come on.
that we have these psychic abilities for a reason, and it's because we're here to be able to use our intuition to guide us.
You don't think it's just part of the starter pack?
Because here's a shut up. Because here's the thing. We're too logic based as humans. So when we try to define everything and we try to look for answers through everything through a logic based sequence of thinking or events, then we're gonna suffer as a consequence, because we're trying to explain something that doesn't make any sense. You have to let your intuition guide you towards something because there's a reason the universe is attracting you towards something.
Yeah.
I don't think you're attracted to it. I think it's the universe attracting you, because it's
That's like saying one magnet is doing all the work. I think they're both coming together. You know what I mean?
But the reason why I think we're down here is because we're like someone like you're talking about all these, I don't know, like your YouTube channel, you do different things than we do, but we're still kind of like within the same scope of topics.
I talk about
philosophy.
Eastern mysticism is what I associate with.
But
that is mainly what I talk about when it comes to spirituality. That and psychedelics.
But I truly believe that the reason why we are connected to you and why we met you is because we're bound to you through several different lifetimes that we've lived, and we're bound to you through several different dimensions that exist all at once.
The way you understand this is through the logical mind. It's completely logical.
You can claim that every explanation for every explanation is a logical explanation. I mean, that's just how it goes. You can't...
Like you said earlier something about trusting your intuition, and what you're talking about now, it made me wonder, like, first thing that comes to your mind, what is the difference between logic and intuition?
So intuition can guide you towards things that make absolutely no sense to you. Like, I'm trying to think of like an example that I've been through.
I can say one.
Like, they can also guide you towards things that seem very logical, but intuition, can guide you towards something like, I don't know.
In your mind, going, this doesn't make sense, is a logical explanation, a conceptual manifestation. This doesn't make sense. You're logically applying yourself to the situation at hand that intuition brought you towards. There's always the logical mind. And what is the intuition in regards to logic? You know what I mean?
Well, it's because what I think also is the ego guides the logical mind. So, we talked about psychedelics a lot in our previous videos, and how when you're going through a very intense psychedelic trip, which I've never experienced personally, but I've heard, stories about people who have this insane ego death where they're basically just one with the universe. Like they aren't, there is no sense of self. There is nothing else except them merged with everything else. It's just like, it's like if you're on DMT or something, probably, that you're kind of just in this space and you can't make any sense of it. So you're just like, okay, like
it's not something right now that you can logically understand.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You look at what you call a mind-blowing ego death that this person on YouTube had, and you logically imagine what that would be like, and like you say, it must be like DMT, and you're just blasted and nothing makes sense. But that's not in my experience of a mind-blowing ego death experience. It's not even that nothing makes sense. It's more so like there is no sense. There's no, and that doesn't imply that it makes no sense. It makes perfect sense.
It's because we live in a universe of free will where anything and everything can occur, to where there are no boundaries or limitations. So like you said, there is no sense, because if you try to make sense of everything, even if you tell you're still trying to make sense of something when you're telling yourself this makes no sense. You're still trying to make sense, like, I'm logically thinking.
And amidst an ego death, you could be trying to make sense of what's happening to you. You know what I mean? But it's as if everything your mind is supplying to you as an answer, or believe this. This is the answer. This is it. This has got to be it. It all seems to fall short of what's happening. It's not actually it. It's not it. It's not it. It's not it. You can't talk about it. You can't logically explain it
because it's
to
almost
yourself what's happening.
It's almost as if
but
those
it's
thoughts.
happening. It's right there.
It's almost as if those thoughts are like coming from your like preconceived notions and like your ego, essentially. Like when you're and I've never. Oh, go ahead.
Oh shit.
Bro.
I like how Alex, you said your ego guides your intuition. That's what you said, right?
I wouldn't say, no, I think I said your ego guides your logical mind.
That's what it was, and yes, you're right, because anything you are logically thinking of is filtered through who you think you are egoically first. You know what I mean? So any situation, in any situation, right now, who you guys think you are is the one seeing and talking to me right now. Your egoic impression of what's going on and what all this is what you think is reality. You know what I mean? And that logical mind is what's creating all that. And you base reality in this part of reality, which is just the conceptual, logical mind.
There's a way to fine-tune that to the point where, at least, it could just be my ego talking or my logic-based mind talking, but I feel like there's a way to take a step back and allow yourself to be in this flow state. When you're in a flow state, you're not really using your ego too much. So if we're 100% focused on our conversation with you, then we're kind of like letting our ego take a step back and allowing us to just speak freely from within.
Do you feel like you're somebody talking to me right now?
Like me talking to you?
Genuinely, yes. Do you feel as if you are someone having a conversation with somebody else?
What do you mean?
In a way, yes.
That is your ego. And it is very much so still at play. My ego is very much so at play right now. It's what's in control of the tone of my voice. It's what's in control of the flow of my thoughts. Like you said, my ego is the first thing. It comes first. It comes before everything. And when I say my ego, whose ego? Whose ego are we talking about here? Hold up. We're having a little bit of a grammatical error here. My ego?
Yeah.
Who is it that has this ego? You know?
consciousness it just exists throughout everywhere, but the ego is something that we possess because it allows us to make sense of a reality that where there is no sense, like you say. So it allows us,
like Terrence McKenna says. He says ego allows me to put food in my mouth instead of your mouth.
Well,
you
exactly. It's basically a survival mechanism that we have, where we're born with it because we feel like we're not advanced intellectuals or like intellectual beings. I mean, we are advanced, but that's just like our ego telling us, oh, we're advanced because we're humans and we're smart when we have these brains. But like if there are such thing as these interdimensional aliens that are far more advanced than we are, do they have egos of their own too?
Us humans can't help but personify what we imagine to be interdimensional beings. Like when you see like an animal being beaten, you put yourself in that animal and go, oh my God, this is so horrible. This is so sad. This is so bad.
But that's one of our biggest strong suits.
But who's to say that animal is free, is enlightened, has no ego? And, if I was to imagine a interdimensional being, it would be an energy, a form of energy that I would personify, that I would structuralize and make up and create and say what it was, but on an experiential level. I mean, if we're talking about like a visual experience, like a psychedelic induced experience or something, it may seem as if there are literal people out in this other world, but I feel as if it's more so an energy being interpreted, an energy being read, and where that energy is coming from, I don't know. And what that energy has to say about things is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to like how we give these sort of higher powers, so to speak, like we give them human characteristics almost.
Like, dude, like I look at I have like a godlike tendency towards psychedelics, bro.
Yeah.
I look at them like, holy fuck, dude. Better bow down, better chill out, better get my shit together before I go hang out with that. You know what I mean, dude? It's like, think about how much of a higher power you've put into those things,
Yeah.
Now think about it, like, now that gives me an idea. So, what if it's not us that's perceiving these gods or these entities, such as shrooms or DMT? I feel like they're their own separate entities, or these other gods that come visit us, which is what created religion in the prime state of existence in the first place. That what if they're so powerful that they come to us in this personified form because that's the easiest way for them to relay their message to us?
That's a fucking good way to put it right there, dude. And that's basically what I meant, dude, is that energy, that power field, whatever that thing is that we're all talking about, it makes sense to us in a certain way, which is why we keep going back, because something in there is so meaningful and so sensical and is like truth, reality. We get it. And I think you might just be fucking dead on.
I think I am. It really just came to me at that moment.
It's boiling itself down into a way that you would understand. And you know what else that makes me think of? Is what you said quite a while ago about how we couldn't handle the full impact.
Exactly. Exactly. That was the idea.
That makes sense.
That what I, like you said there, the idea of not being able to handle the full vibrational frequency or energy of these other entities, that came from the book. But when I really think about it, it makes sense why they come to us in that form, because it's a lot easier for them to do that. Otherwise, we would just be like, our brain would just be fried and we'd be in this state of psychosis.
Right? Like I've had experiences with, DMT multiple times that have led me to believe that there's a zone where, there's just the right zone where you have full availability to the entities, the thought streams, the breakthrough dialogues that you get yourself into. And then if you don't get to that zone, you just kind of feel weird, and you're having like maybe LSD like visuals, and it doesn't feel like much. And if you go beyond it, kind of like you said, it fucking fries your brain. You don't remember anything. It's as if you were dead. It's as if nothing happened. The times that I've tried to break through, that happened. I went into this space of nothingness. There was no trip. Nothing was going on. All of a sudden, I just came back to, and I'm laying down in the woods, and I'm having the most insane morphing visuals ever. But what I'm wondering is, where just was I? What the fuck just happened?
It's almost like you went through a dream or something like that.
If things like DMT and mushrooms and these kind of things are bringing us through a portal to higher powers, maybe doing a lot of it at once can bring you directly into it, and you can't conceptualize it. You can't. I don't want to say you can't bear it, but you can't make sense of it because it's not a logical thing going on. It's not a thing that the mind can really imagine, I guess.
Can perceive.
Yeah, for real.
Because you're projecting, basically.
You can perceive it, dude. It's right there,
Yeah.
Take fucking
But it's nothing you've
50
really...
milligrams of DMT.
It's nothing you've really ever had an opportunity to perceive in the past, and it's like you're trying to use logic to sort of, I don't know, what's the word? Just come to conclusions about what you're seeing, essentially.
And it's also like you never see the same thing. There's an infinite number of visuals.
Because it doesn't end. There's no...
Yeah. Because, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's no... Like I said, there's no limits or boundaries to...
Psychedelics.
To everything. Not just psychedelics, it's just the universe. When we're on psychedelics, it breaks everything down for us in such a way that we see how the boundaries are, let's say I'm at like a 2-gram dose of shrooms, I might just be like just a little bit high and like giggly and shit, but I might have some visuals that kind of let me see how there's a little bit less boundary within the planet that we live on. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I remember at very first trip, I was just like, wow, like, we don't experience nature enough, and we don't get outside enough. It takes down boundaries, because I had this boundary in my head, like this figment of my imagination, that I was depressed and I couldn't, get my mental health to be better, because I don't even know why, honestly.
You couldn't really find a meaning to life.
Yeah, I just couldn't find a meaning to anything. But it wasn't until that first trip that made me feel connected in a way, because fuck, how do I say it? Sorry. I kind of like stutter a lot, but...
No, you're good, man.
It makes me think that when I did that very first trip, it didn't necessarily show me the entire universe, but it gave me enough information, which I said before is light. Light is information. I was able to take in the sun that day and be able to take in those light coatings and to harness that in my light filaments and be able to understand that, okay, the sun is energizing and powerful, and the earth is its own place that harnesses this very beautiful, majestic power of... I don't even know what the majestic power is. It's beautiful, and there's no words to explain it. Because Earth
maybe that's why there's so many religions.
Yeah. And I think part of my personal spiritual journey, I guess you could say, was sort of accepting that what I believe in isn't just it. Like, it's not just truth. It's not what I believe in isn't necessarily correct. And sort of seeing that, okay, well, these other people, well, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what they believe in. That doesn't make them first off wrong, but that doesn't make anybody right. Like, we don't know what's going. We don't know we don't know the answer. We don't know the truth. We don't know shit.
we just like to settle for what sounds pretty.
Yeah.
If something makes sense, and includes the whole thing, and accounts for all the different things going on in reality, there you go. It makes sense. It's a theory, as scientists would call it. A theory that, oh yeah, it makes sense. It's wholesome, but it's not reality.
Yeah.
Because they think their theory is reality.
And about ego death, I've never been I wouldn't say I've ever been remotely close to it, but the one time that was hard for me to describe was on my heroic dose trip, when I was just sort of spinning around and then just looking straight up into the air, and I was like, I wasn't even in control of myself. Like, I was just looking up into the air and looking up around, and I was losing my grasp completely of reality. And it was so
what were
hard.
You losing grasp of?
Jesus.
Is that my car? No. What was I losing grasp of? I don't even, just what was in front of me, basically. Like, I was looking up into these trees and over into the sky, and especially of my friends who were right next to me, which I don't want to say, they were there, so they were the reason it didn't happen, but they were kind of distracting me in a way, so I couldn't really get to that point. I couldn't keep going, and I don't know, I was just like so unsure and unaware of what I was really experiencing and going through that I sort of came back down, essentially, to this reality. That's the one close as I was to an ego death, I would say.
Before we got into the conversation, you guys were talking to me about like what experiences I've had with mushrooms and stuff, which isn't really extensive at all. But what you're talking about now reminds me of a time I did have on what I'd say my strongest mushroom trip was. It was quite a ways after the peak, honestly. I had peaked, and it was, I was fully settled into the experience. And me and my brother were watching videos on YouTube, and for about 20 seconds, like, it was like I didn't exist. I wasn't there. It's like, and it wasn't like it was scary or euphoric or spiritual or not spiritual or dangerous or whatever. It's like I was gone. And it was honestly like my vision disappeared too. Everything was gone. And then all of a sudden everything slowly faded back in, and I'm back in the room watching videos. And that is not a common effect of psychedelics in my experiences.
Interestingly enough, I have felt something very odd and hard to describe on weed, actually. One time when I smoked with him and our other friend, when I was just like completely lost, and I got out of the car because I needed to step up and take a deep breath, but when I got up, it was almost as if I was experiencing some type of vertigo, and like I couldn't process what was in front of me. I couldn't move. I couldn't control what I was normally able to control. And I was like,
when you get really high on cannabis, you can experience a vertigo-like symptom, or like what you'd call the spins, like when you're drunk. Like if you're stoned out of your mind, like if you've never smoked weed or haven't smoked in a while and smoke a shitload, or take fucking some really nice edibles, dude, if you shut your eyes, you feel like you're falling. You literally will feel like, you're falling back constantly, like, and it's scary. It's making you think like, whoa, what the fuck? I mean, that's what it makes me think of what you were just talking about. I've actually experienced that.
It's because we're projects. And
it's similar, though, to what you were saying. I mean, kind of, I guess, like just being at a point where I don't even feel like I'm experiencing anything. I don't exist for like a small portion of time.
That's what I call a good bong rip, dude.
Yeah,
seriously, bro. It's like you could call it a head rush type thing, I guess, but it's also kind of like I just like fully tranced out and like was gone for like 5-10 seconds. Doesn't happen often, but every now and then, at the right time, it'll it'll seem like it does some sort of fucking, I guess you could call it a dissociative like experience, you know, a temporary dissociative experience.
We can definitely do that, especially on edibles. But I think we should wrap it up because we're at like an hour 15.
Yeah, minute 15.
Nice, dude. That's good, bro. I like the long ones.
Yeah.
It starts to get good around 30 minutes, dude.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I like to keep
It's hard to settle in because you're just trying to like jump everywhere, and I know
Right.
making the
You're
time.
trying to get it all out at once.
It's best when
you
And
just
I
make
like
it-
the non-formalness of
Right. Yeah.
the collaboration conversation.
It's a conversation. You basically make it a conversation after a certain amount of points.
Yeah,
you're not
exactly.
worried about, you know.
So I'm gonna
But
go.
no, I feel like we did say some good shit, man. I'm fine with wrapping this up.
I'm gonna go finish off with like my final verdict here, I guess. So, what I really think, you know,
Lay it on me.
based on this conversation, honestly, like I don't really like the simplistic answers, but I have this very simple answer to everything here that we've talked about, that we have these spiritual experiences, that we're innately spiritual as humans, that we have these spiritual experiences, and after we have these spiritual experiences occur to us, then we start trying to tie it into other things that are easy to believe in as to why we may be going through this spiritual experience, and that's what leads us to religion or a religious based thought. How like me, I'm not necessarily religious, I would be agnostic. Basically that would be the proper term. I'm agnostic, so I don't belong to any particular religion, but for me, I may believe in certain things, you know. I don't like hardcore go to the extreme lanes and be like, oh, this is for sure 100% what it's like all the time and
The truth.
all that. Yeah, like you can't claim to know absolute truth. Like it's hard to know the absolutes in this universe. It's also a key principle in Buddhism as well. You know, the only absolute is nirvana. And for me, it's just having these spiritual experiences. There's been many different phases I've gone through where I've become attached to these ideas or beliefs. You know, like one of them I've mentioned many times, the conspiracy craze. I thought for sure all these things were happening, but what it really is, it's just, it's a non-existent reality. It's like holographic reality that's being created in front of me to be able to convince me that this is exactly what's going to happen. But you create your own reality, you create your own destiny, you're in charge. That's ultimately what I have to say. So, and wait. One
what
second.
you'd like to say, go for it, man.
Wait, one second. So at the very end, in conclusion, you know, that that's how, you know,
I want to conclude first.
that's how religion innately exists within reality. It's based off of one person having a spiritual experience, and maybe some people create bands or groups together to create their own religion.
Yeah, and I
feel that.
I think from my perspective, it's just you can keep searching. You can keep searching all you want, keep questioning and diving into new ideas, ideologies, and perspectives. But you just can't conclude and just be like, "This is I have evidence that like what's the word? Undisputed evidence that this is the truth." And I think that that's something that oftentimes many people can do through religion, is sort of enforce these ideas upon others, and they just believe it to the core that what they believe in is the truth. And yeah, I think that kind of relates to what I was saying too about science, and how it's like, yeah, sure, science is obviously useful, very useful, but it's not like, like you said, science is sort of, it uses like matter as its higher power. And can't remember where I was going with this. I kind of lost
Stop
my train
saying
of thought.
you piece of shit. Come on, you suck, bro.
You're so mean, bro. Lay off.
I know, bro. But yeah, dude. So like science.
Is there anything else? 5 seconds.
Shit,
5,
fuck.
4, 3, 2, 1. Ah!
Science is the truth to a certain extent, but it's only to what we can perceive. And just keep. I think the moral of what I'm trying to say is just keep searching, but don't ever come to a conclusion that what you believe and what you're looking up into is the truth.
Don't settle.
Don't settle.
It's all different ways up the same mountain. You know, some people are trudging right up their path. Other people are thinking their path is too hard and looking for the ones next to them that might be easier. And some people are stopping halfway up on their path, yelling to other people on other paths, hey, this is the path you want to be on. But in my conclusion, I wanna share a quote, and I want to tie it into religion. We think everything happens to us. Events in the external world happen to us. Physical pain and sicknesses happen to us. Thoughts and feelings and emotions happen to us. Even our very senses, we could feel as if they are happening to us. Now, everything I have just listed makes up the entire perceivable reality. And if the entire available universe is happening to you, who are you and where are you in the scheme of things? And if you can see who that little you is that everything that ever existed is happening to, your life becomes clear. Your life becomes very clear, and things start to make a lot of sense beyond the logical mind. And a lot of people get caught up. And start making a religion out of this innate knowing that they have gotten themselves to. But if you can see that little character that thinks everything is happening to it, you will see why you think everything you think. You will see why you believe in everything you believe in. You will see how what everyone is saying is essentially, kind of like you said, Will, a part of the truth. And you also see how nobody, in essence, is right. But there is an innate knowing, deep within us, right behind it, that person who we think we are, that knows reality, that is reality, and always has been, and always will be. And that is what makes us religious. That is what makes us religious, because there's an aspect of being that is beyond what we perceive ourselves to be. So that's really it for what I have to say in conclusion.
Whether we know it or not, we're kind of all religious in our own way.
Yeah. As this conversation has gone on, my definition of religion has literally expanded to almost anything you fucking believe in.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is, and there's no denying it.
Yeah.
And if you try to deny it, you're just using resistance as a part of your ego.
Yeah, right.
So,
and
we are biased.
The reason you're resisting it is because you're uncomfortable with your own truth.
You're uncomfortable with.
You get embarrassed when you preach what you think truth is.
But it's not
that
even
shows
just,
that you don't even believe in it.
But it's not even just that. It's more just like you're uncomfortable with saying that you reside in religious-based thought, because you always tell yourself that I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. There's a difference. But it's almost all in the same bucket. So, I feel like...
I would the way I would separate the two is religion is seeing a holy power in the universe, while spirituality is seeing that you're somebody who thinks there's a holy power in the universe. That's what I feel the difference between the two is.
I wouldn't really say that 100%. It's more like, to me, spirituality is more self-based. Like, you're trying to discover who you are, but...
Is it not self-based to realize that you're somebody who thinks there's a higher power? That's entirely self-based.
That's why I think I've seen people make videos comparing and contrasting religion and spirituality, but from what I've taken from our conversation together, I feel like it's almost all in the same, you know. It's all in one, that it all encompasses each other, like one leads to the other, or vice versa. It's just, I don't know.
My mind over here is imagining that they're different, you know, and that doesn't, you know, imply that they are. It's just what my non-knowing human mind thinks of when it hears what's the difference between religion and spirituality. You know, what I've egoically come to is what I'm putting off to you guys, you know what I mean?
So you said that you think spirituality is, what again?
Religion would be seeing a higher power in the universe, whether it be in you, in this figure, in this object, whatever it is. Spirituality would be becoming aware that you think you're somebody doing something. You think you're somebody who is worshiping a god. You realize you're somebody who thinks a god exists.
That's what you think spirituality is?
Is an innate realization of what you think reality is. You're realizing that you make things up. And you're realizing the nature of where everything is coming out of.
It's because reality is malleable. That's why. And
yeah, I know. Reality is like Play-Doh.
It is malleable, and that's kind of, spirituality is more like playing with that, and religion kind of deals with similar concepts, but it's more based out of focusing on the external source of power in the universe.
Like God, like whoever wrote the Bible says things like deny thyself, and we all take it as like fight your urges. But what if he's saying let go of your fucking ego? Don't think you're somebody. Because thinking you're somebody is where all the problems come in. If you're not somebody, you're fine. But as long as you think you're somebody doing something, going somewhere, you're going to suffer. Pretty sure that's what Buddha said himself.
I also just think it's just more of also going on a pathway towards something, and you know you're headed towards something, and you're not exactly sure how it's going to play out, but you're allowing yourself to be as present as you possibly can in the now. And you know that things can change, but eventually, you know, there will be a time when you get to many different crossroads, and you how do I say, like you get to a point where you feel like you're a little bit more settled in with your life, and you may not push yourself as much, but you're still always going to develop spiritually. And I forgot where I was going with this, because you were saying that you'll suffer if you think you're trying to head towards something, like a specific goal almost. Because if you're trying to go achieve this specific thing and you get all the way to this point, you're going to have a downfall once you get there, because you're going to realize, wow, like I was almost reliant and dependent on this.
Not only trying to get somewhere, but thinking you're somebody going somewhere.
Dude, that's
thinking you're somebody having a downfall.
That was like me. I went on a no-fap journey for over 200 days.
Yeah, dude, I watched that.
And it was almost like I didn't have any intentions to do it. I was just kind of, I was going mindlessly, continuing mindlessly with no plans, and I wasn't expecting anything out of it. And then when I relapsed, it sort of felt like everything came crashing down on me. Like I was like, oh, what did I just do? Why did I do that? But then I really realized it's like, this is just a human experience. This is nothing like that. I shouldn't be ashamed of this, right? It's just like, move on and keep going.
And the moral really is to just focus more on you, focus on your well-being, but try to stay present and don't focus towards some external reward or outcome, and allow yourself to be.
Or even an internal reward.
Just allow yourself to be, and still relate that to your own personal religion or your own personal faith or spirituality, I guess. Just make sure you keep that intact and within, but also stay present at the same time and not let that be too much of a part of your ego to where you're using it to basically, what's the word for when you
I think you need
when you drag something on?
Yeah.
Perpetuate?
No, it's no, the word for, oh my god, I can't even think of it.
No, I think you just need to learn how to accept your insignificance, basically, at times.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything because you're already doing it without trying. When that tension comes in that thinks you need to do something, something's going to happen regardless of if you feel like you need to do it or not. So if you can just be here and just feel yourself and see yourself and hear yourself, you don't have to do anything. It's all happening for you.
The key is
your
to
life
just
is coming
the flow of life
before you in every moment. In every moment, it's appearing.
The key is to not make things hard for yourself, and also to make things feel effortless. That even if you do have to put a good deal of work into something, don't think of it like that. Think of it like, okay, this work ethic is coming out of me naturally and effortlessly. That I will receive what I want to manifest as long as...
Like defining it as work rather than play.
Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
Yeah, I said everything.
Yeah, you want to call it?
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys very much for talking. I feel like that was a good one.
Of course,
sure.
thank
Longest
you.
one yet.
Yeah.
We'll
Definitely
be back.
pretty long.
We'll be
For
doing
sure,
more
for
too.
sure, for sure. It's gonna mute you, bro.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be muted.
All right, peace,
No,
bro.
for real, really good conversation. Yeah, I'll catch you guys later.
Psychonaut Visions signing out.